Pedro Cisneros III. I represent Amistad Car Club. This is my 1979 Lincoln Mark V, and we represent the lowrider car culture here in Chicago. I was introduced to lowriding when I was about 9 or 10 years old. We had moved next door to a family that had lowriders. They had a 1964 Galaxy 500, and that thing just blew my mind. I thought it was a spaceship. I remember the car, pretty much every detail on it. It had Kragers, the white wall 520s, chain steering wheel. It had a vinyl interior that was burgundy with flake on it, kind of like what you see on these banana seats on these lowrider bikes. And it had a mural on the trunk, which portrayed, I guess, it was supposed to be the hands of God. One hand was holding the world, and the other hand was holding an hourglass. And on the hourglass, the sand was pretty much running out, so it kind of like saying that the end of time was close by. But this car just tripped me out. I had never seen anything like it. It was low to the ground, and it just blew my mind. I had to ask what it was, because I didn't know what it was. And I asked, what kind of car is this? They told me it was a lowrider. And I said, a lowrider? Well, what's a lowrider? Pretty much what you see here. It's a car, and it's pretty much on the ground. It's slow, and we drive them that way. So it's a lowrider. So that was my introduction to the lowrider and the lowrider culture. Well, I started getting involved. I started hanging out with my neighbors more. One of the kids that was my age had a lowrider bike, and it was just as awesome as the car. And seeing these two things, and me being right next door, just checking them out on a daily basis, I just got involved with them. Or it wasn't too long after that I found my identity. I knew that this is what I wanted to be, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to build something similar to this, and I've been in it ever since, Hanging around with my neighbors, right off the bat, I knew I couldn't have a car, so I started off with bikes. Just like the cars, pretty much the Schwinn is the Impala of the bikes, and I couldn't afford an Impala or a Schwinn. So I pretty much started off with a bike that I had, and which was just a basic BMX bike, regular standard bike. And I started, asking questions. What do I need to do, to make this bike into a lowrider? And of course, they helped me out. One of the first things we needed to do was get rid of the forks and put Springer forks on it. We couldn't afford Springer forks at that time, so one of the alternative was to get 10-speed forks, which were long. And one of the tricks that we did to lower the bike was to bend the forks. And the way we would do that was go to a fence post and stick the fork in there and pretty much bend it to where it would lower the fork and lower the bike stance at the same time. And one of the things that I liked doing when I was young, building these bikes, was alley picking. I would go down alleys, and a lot of people, believe it or not, would throw away bikes in 10 speeds at that time, and I would carry them home, and whatever I could salvage off these bikes, I would take them off and put these bikes together. But I built my first lowrider out of just scrap parts and whatever I had to do to make the bike low, bro. My first car, I was around 15 years old, and my mother had given me her car. It was a 1966 Chrysler Newport. I got kicked out of school. My mother made me go work. She gave me the car so I could actually drive to work. And this thing was awesome. It had skirts, had spoke hubcaps on it, and white walls. And that's all I needed, man. That was my first lowrider. Put weight in the trunk, lowered the back with the weight. And I remember drawing or painting the lowrider logo on the sail panels. Man, for me, I was the king of the road with that thing. I don't think there's any wrong way to lowride. If you have the heart and you have the love for this culture, you know, it'll show. You don't have to have an Impala. You don't have to have anything other than what you got. And if you lower that thing, it could have hubcaps. And if it's low and you have the heart, you're part of this culture. And that's how I see it. Having the heart, and if you got red oxide primer on your ride and hubcaps, is just as good as any other car in the lowrider culture. Earlier when I mentioned, you know, I found my identity. The car and you and the culture are one. We're one entity. I represent my car represents me, we represent the culture represents us. People, when they see you or they say, you, even without seeing your car, just you walking around, they'll say, you're a lowrider. This car, it's a 1979 Lincoln Mark V. This is my second one. I had one before this one. It was a two-tone green, pretty much the same thing you see here, but it was green. I wound up selling it so I could buy a pickup truck. This build, I said, you know what, I want to do the truck right, so I'm going to build this car to buy me time so I could build that one right. Wind up doing the body work on it, bought the paint. A friend of mine, Montoya, painted it in his garage. I did the hydraulics on it, cleaned up the undercarriage. It's got real mild chrome on the undercarriage, nothing crazy. People like the car, man, and I appreciate everybody that gives me compliments on it. I'm happy with it. I'm content with it. You know, it doesn't have all the engraving and stuff like that, but it's doing its purpose for me. It's representing the culture. It's representing me. I enjoy telling people that you don't have to spend $100,000 building a car. You know, this car literally, I probably invested like $6,000 in it, doing the work and with the help of friends. So when they hear that, you know, they trip out and like, wow, but they thought they didn't have a chance, you know, building something nice. Hearing that gives them motivation to say, you know what, we could build something, you know, we hang out with the right people. And I named it Backyard Boogie for the fact being that it was built in the garage in the backyard. One thing about the lowrider culture, man, it's a beautiful thing, you know. These cars are awesome, but it's bittersweet. Sometimes we get so caught up in building these cars or in the culture or in the club that it affects our families. We get so focused and obsessed sometimes with building these cars that it could take time away from our families, and that can cause problems sometimes, you know. So it's not always, you know, you see the car, the beautiful car, you see the patterns, you see the chrome, the engraving, but then sometimes we don't see behind the scenes. I've been fortunate enough to have my wife. She loves it. She loves cruising. In fact, she's the one that pushes me to take the car out more often than I want to, but she's been real supportive. She's involved also with the photography. She loves taking pictures of these cars. My oldest son, I always had him around when I was lowriding and building cars, and now he's jumped into it. He's the next generation. My youngest is also starting to get into the scene as well. But it's nice to have the family involved, to see my son, my oldest son, you know, continue this lowrider onda, you know, is awesome. My youngest son, he's getting into it as well. My wife is into it. So it's nice to have the family involved. We try to balance ourselves out. You know, it's not always car shows and picnics and cruise nights. Vacations are also nice with the family, Disneyland and stuff like that, you know, so. I think it just depends on the person, man. For me, building it is just, you know, the way to go. Even if it's, you know, on a budget, building the car for me is the way to go because you can personalize it. Buying it, you could always buy a car that's built already and man, I love that car. I like the patterns. I love this and that. But you have nothing. You don't have anything to do with that car other than liking it. That's somebody else's vision, and you know, there's nothing wrong with that either.